And we are live. All right, everybody. Another edition of Alumni Monday, and I'm here with PGA Professional Sarah Dant, graduating in the early 2000s, and she's in Nashville helping her parents move down to Florida where she spends most of her year. So, Sarah, welcome, and thanks for making the time to speak with me today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and I know that you've got a lot going on in your career right now. So from what she said earlier, spends a lot of time in Florida and then some time in Minnesota. So tell me about what you're doing right now in your career and what you're doing teaching and coaching wise, because that sounds like it is the main thing you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated in 2002. My dad finally was like, you got to go. I was not going to leave Mississippi State. I was like, I love it here. So especially when the new classes kept coming in, I was like, wow, this is fun. So yeah, I graduated 2002, my first job. Well, my last internship was in Nashville at Bellmead Country Club. And so they offered me a job back there. So I was there for about 5 years. And then I transferred to the golf club at Tennessee to be a teaching professional role. I kind of did both. I was working in the shop with Doug Oob, who also is MSU grad, and started out just really getting into teaching and coaching and had the opportunity to kind of grow what I was doing. And then in the meantime, I'd also go down to Naples, Florida. So I've been doing that for quite a few years now. And I was kind of doing that as a part-time gig just when the golf club was closed. And that kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'd stay longer and longer. And eventually it just shifted to where I'm like, I just want to be in Naples. It's great down here. And so that's kind of, I'm permanently there. My husband and I go up to northern Minnesota to Bemidji, Minnesota, which some people know where that is, almost to Canada, which I'm like 3 months and that's it. I'm good. And he has a junior program so that we're starting that now also up there. But mainly just my life just revolves around teaching, coaching. I mentor other golf pros on their businesses and help them with their coaching skills. So it's kind of just where I've become now. I officially do not work in the golf shop. I haven't done that for years. And I think we're going to kind of talk a lot about that today because you'll see I'm very passionate about just learn to teach, learn to coach, because that's what you're doing as a PGA professional. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of us, when we look to Mississippi State and we look to a career in golf, we start thinking about what was it, the people that inspired us. I always remember the first junior clinic I went to at 12 years old, and you start thinking about how can I get involved in this? And it turns out that Mississippi State sort of served that vehicle for you. So tell me about when you came and visited in the 90s. I mean, you grew up in Minnesota, so what is that even like to come from Minnesota to Mississippi? And
crazy.
Talk about your time in school. What was that like during that time?
So I knew my freshman year in high school, I went to my dad and I was like, I want to be a golf pro. And of course he freaked out. He's like, oh, seriously, that's so great. So we traveled all over the country. We went to I think there was 6 schools at the time, and all of them, Penn State, Ferris State. I was like, no way. I really don't like Minnesota. I want to get out of here. I don't like the weather. New Mexico, I just didn't love it. And I went to Mississippi State and I was just like, I am not leaving here. Unfortunately, I was in for a big shock because I had no idea what the Southern culture was like or the sorority culture or just anything down there. I didn't know what I was getting into. So packed up. My Minnesota friends were literally like, do you know they have snakes in church there? And I'm like, does it count? It was crazy. So my parents drove me down there. It was 105 degrees when I arrived. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die here. And honestly, the first week was the most terrible week of my life. I literally was like, I wanted to do rush because I was like, well, I'm going to be in a program with 200 boys. I need to meet some girls. I had no idea. So by day 7, I was calling my parents like, please come get me, please come get me. And my dad was like, can you just go to the golf course, go out there, meet some PGA guys, you'll be fine. Of course, 5 minutes, I met my best friend, and Ryan and I hung out for 5 years. And ever since then, it was great. As soon as I got to the golf course, as soon as I had my first PGM meeting, it was over. It was the greatest 5 years. It was so awesome. And I hated football. I never watched football, but I was a huge SEC football fan. But yeah, it was totally a shocker for me. But you also realize there's so many northern people in the program that as soon as you get to that comfort, like you're with all those people, it's just, all right, I'm comfortable. This is all good. So, yeah.
That's got to be a huge shock. And then whenever we have students coming in from far away, we just have a student who enrolled from South Dakota, and I was asking her questions about like what's weird so far, and it's more so right now. She's like terminology and the way the boys dress.
Oh my God.
You get it, So there's funny things like that, but they're unfortunately in a situation where we're not having a traditional semester where we're
true.
We're masking it every day.
Yeah.
We're online and we can barely, we're just having a lot of challenges. I'm just hoping we have some kind of football where they can enjoy something, because that's such a big part of the culture down here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. My dad's shocked. He's like, you're watching what? Like, I know. Yeah, it's a big, it's such a change, but it's so amazing that leaving where you grew up and leaving what you're comfortable with and learning a whole new culture it's just completely changes who you are, and how you can, I can go anywhere and just feel like I can travel, I can move, I can do whatever. So it's such a good experience to do that, is just go. And the PGM program is so great because you've got everyone with we all love golf and we all are in this program together, and you've got the office and you've got everybody that can support each other. So it's not actually that hard once you get in there and get going with everyone. It's kind of like, all right, this is good.
I think that I tell that to prospective students a lot. When you leave high school, you think, oh my goodness, these people, I've been around them my whole life, I'm going to miss them. And you walk into a classroom and there's 50 people that like golf like you do, love golf like you do. And you're like, these are the people who, and you become, you grow up with them, you become you enter adulthood with these people. So your bond with everybody in college, and specifically the program, not to say that those other friendships don't last, but the friendships that you forge while in this program, it's hard to explain how strong those are and how long those will continue. I mean, how many people do you talk to from school? I mean, is there a bunch?
It's crazy. And you can call, all of a sudden someone's like, oh, I ran into so-and-so. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to him in years. There's just so many connections through Mississippi State. It's unbelievable. And you can just call any place and be like, oh, I graduated whenever. And everybody just treats each other so well, the networking of and that's why I went to Mississippi State too, is because I felt like that one I know Penn State has a really good one also. I just felt like there's this huge network here of people all over the country and now all over the world. And you can so many people are still in the business, and you can, call up people and all over, and it's great. And you stay connected with them. So in hindsight, I would never be scared to go to college now. But the first week I was like, what did I do? I need to leave here. But now I'm like, oh my God, it's great.
Well, and we always talk about this here, that growth and comfort don't coexist. You got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order to grow in anything, but specifically golf. I mean, it takes one of the things we hear from juniors and seniors in the program who haven't taught a lot, like what you're talking about in your career. They say, well, I'm not that strong of a teacher. It's like, well, how many situations are you putting yourself in to teach? So what kind of advice would you give a young student who's graduating? And we both firmly and passionately agree that the thing that sets us apart from any other really business major is the ability to play and teach the game of golf. So what would you be telling a young graduate of the program to start putting themselves in those situations to grow their teaching and get it to where it become a viable part of their life and potentially their income as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, just going off of experience and going off of the people that I've seen succeed in the business, I would just strongly encourage everyone to think, how do I grow my coaching skills? And I mean, teaching, coaching, whatever you want to call it, but there's so much money to be made in coaching, and there's not a lot of people truly doing it because it's more comfortable. I feel like it's easier for us to be golf professionals in a golf shop selling clothes and tee times, because that's what we're trained to do. And that's what our education showed us. We don't have a lot of education on teaching. At least when I was around, it wasn't like it was really a huge part of what was going on. And so I feel like we're kind of always build your resume, work for the right person. You don't take that job because it's not going to look good on your resume, where it doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. If you have a skill of teaching golf, the world is yours. You can teach wherever, you can make as much money as you want. People will beg for you to come help them. Whereas to me, I always think golf professionals can easily be replaced. Doesn't matter how amazing you are, you can easily be replaced. If you're just somebody that's in a shop selling merchandise, yeah, maybe you give a few lessons here or there, but I've just witnessed what happens when somebody goes into a role as a leader of a program or a coach of a program. The respect level goes so high for the members and the people around you that they're like, oh, people are like, she's up here and all the other pros are over here. And it has nothing to do with I'm better than them or whatever. It's just that people respect teachers and coaches. And if you're doing a super good job, they see that more than if you're doing a super good job selling shoes. I know that sounds bad, but I want to make it so clear that now being in the business for 20 years, that's how you are going to make money. That's how you're going to get ahead. And because I mentor so many coaches, the big thing we see is burnout. So I want to make money teaching, but I'm giving 50 hours to my club and I can't teach. So you're very limited on your income. Your family is falling apart. You can't see your kids. And so when we try to mentor coaches, we swap that and say, how can we make more money per hour so that now you can be home with your family? And we all know the golf business has this reputation for hours is a badge of honor. It's like, well, I work 70 hours a week and I make $10 an hour. Like, it doesn't mean anything, or I could work 30 hours a week and make $200 an hour. That's available to everyone. You just have to work on your skills. So when you start out, you will suck. I sucked. I was terrible. I was like, what was I even doing? Like, I literally read some articles I wrote 10 years ago and I'm like, what were you thinking? But that's how it evolves. Like you just said, you can't, if you don't get uncomfortable and you don't fail and you don't suck at something for a little bit, you'll never get better. I mean, I've spent years teaching golf that I was like, I don't like this because I didn't like the situation I was in. I didn't like the one-on-one fix me. I have a tournament to play in tomorrow. I'll see you in 6 months. I don't like that. And I didn't feel comfortable doing it. So I was a little unhappy. And then I shifted it into more of coaching. So now I see my players every week, every 10 days. We have phone calls. I'm constantly like engaging in their life and in their progress and in their program. And so, yes, you're going to be terrible in the very beginning. It's just like I try to use the example of yoga. Like when you start yoga, you're terrible. You can barely move. You can barely bend. 10 years later, you can be like doing whatever you want. So it's kind of the same. Anything that you start at, you're going to have to build your skills to it. And like I've just had this experience with my husband doing it because this is like really his second year of I want to teach golf for a living and try to make money doing it. And you could tell he was so insecure in the beginning. He's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, just do something, ruin the person's game. Like, and then you'll realize like, well, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's so many great things now. Like you can join programs like, we've been talking about RGX. You can go see Vision 54. You can go talk to Henry and Rick. I mean, there's just so many amazing coaches out there that are sharing what they do and teaching others. Like I'm heavily involved in RGX in the mentoring program. So I'm on calls all the time. Just it's part of the program. Like, ask questions. What are you struggling with? Let me help you. I've got 20 years of experience doing this. Let me tell you how you will fail if you do it this way. Or go ahead and do it that way, fail, and then realize this other way will work. And everybody's different. So you just have to try it, follow people, go see teachers, teach them. And how many teachers have you watched or gone to visit? I mean, I have been everywhere. And I pick and choose what I want and what works with my personality. And now I'm like right where I want to be. But it took a long time to get there.
That's the interesting thing about our industry. One of the things that blew me away upon graduation was how approachable and how open people you've seen on television, that they'll reply to emails and be like, hey, let's on a call. And you're like, you actually read my email? Like, yeah. It's amazing to me how tight-knit this group is and how not only Mississippi State, but PGA professionals who want to create beginner
Absolutely.
teachers, how accessible they really are.
Absolutely. I mean, you won't find many coaches, if you just label it as a coach, as somebody who wants to help other people reach their potential. So there's no way I would ever not help another person with their coaching program. So you won't find many people. It doesn't matter how big and amazing they are. They're always going to respond to you, and they're always going to say, yeah, come out and watch, or whatever it might be, So it's available if you choose to use it. And that's what's more amazing than ever before. I mean, 10 years ago, social media just wasn't as heavy. So you weren't able to connect with people as much as you are now. But some of the Facebook groups I'm on, it's just like, wow, there's so much free education right here. Listening to what they're saying and teaching. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And from my experience with the PGA the last couple of years being on the coaching committee, I know what they're doing internally. And I know that there is a huge swap in transition to focusing on coaching. They just launched PGAcoach.com. There's just so many avenues now for golf professionals to go that way, as opposed to getting stuck working in a golf shop and struggling. And I'm not trying to beat that up. I'm just reminding everyone that PGA coaches teach and play the game of golf.
That's absolutely right. I mean,
try to do that.
absolutely right. Well, as you're sitting there talking, I'm thinking of, just things and Virgil Herring telling me one time, he's like, my lessons book's full and I'm turning people away. So it's available. People want to learn. Come out here and make some of this money and help these people.
Absolutely. I know it's great. I mean, I'm constantly full, which is why I'm bringing in some help. But my lesson book was so full that I'm like, I'm going to start making groups. And so I started making groups, and now I have so many people that I see every week that just part of the program. So it is unlimited, the amount of money you can make teaching. It's very limited, the amount of money you can make working in a shop. It's just that not everybody has that mindset of a business, and some people are scared to do it. So right out of college, I mean, I was in high school with my pros constantly watching them teach. And then in college, I was like so hungry for information. As soon as I got out of it, I was like, I'm going to watch everybody. And Virgil was in Nashville with me, so I watched him teach. I watched everybody. I'm like, absorb as much as you can. Even if later down the road you think it's wrong or you don't like the way that's done, you can do it your own way. But you've got to just consume yourself with it. And all of a sudden you're going to be an amazing teacher.
Absolutely right. So I feel like you and I could talk teaching for a while here, but I want to shift, since you brought up the PGA of America. I want to bring up a question for us to end on here. As you talked about, the PGA has sort of shifted, and look, we all know that the membership is an aging membership. We've got really a big push for the next wave of PGA member needs to understand how teaching and coaching can influence the bottom line at their facility. Because if they're not bringing that, they're really going to struggle. But the PGA of America has certainly transitioned there. And I think one of the other things the PGA of America has done a good job with of late is really with a big push for inclusion, through the PGA Reach programming and some of the things they're doing with inclusion. And I don't know how many females were in the program when you were here, and I'd have to go back and look. It's less than 40 that we've graduated. It's not a large amount of females that we've had. So we've even had issues with growing our own minority population of students in the program. But we're seeing that kind of shift a little bit, and the PGA pushing that, I think, has changed. So give me your perspective on what have you seen change, not only in the industry, but just from your own perspective of being a female in the industry, which is obviously something that's desirable now because we're all looking to diversify our staffs and give unique points of view when it comes to trying to connect with our members and our guests.
Yeah. We talked about this before. I have encountered a few times in my career. So let's just say 2000 to 2020, the beginning of my career, obviously I encountered some situations that were definitely, you're not going to get this. They don't say that to you, but you're not getting this job because you're female related. That just doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist in the majority of the country. The majority of the country would say, we are desperate for females. I'm getting calls constantly. Do you have any females that are willing to teach here? And the good ones are gone. They're taken. They're at jobs that are secure. They love where they are. So the industry needs a ton of females because that's what they want, teachers. So I think part of it is that I just got lucky. Like I said, I mean, I loved my golf pros growing up. They were so good to me. And I was like, well, this is awesome. Like, I want to be a golf pro. I had no idea what that even meant, but I'm like, these people are cool and I love golf. So I just lucked into this, but I don't think that a lot of females who can play the game would look at it as there's a huge career out there for me if I want it. And yes, it's extremely uncomfortable to be. I think there was three women most of the time in my class. So like someone might graduate or two freshmen came in. There probably was never more than 5 girls total for me. So yeah, was it uncomfortable? Yes, but it's also amazing. I tell girls all the time, I'm like, don't you want to hang out with boys all the time? Like I tell my little juniors, I'm like, there's so many cute boys in golf. You really should get into golf. But I mean, and it's just like, you just don't realize that this is a huge opportunity for females to make an extremely good living. And like we were talking about, we're starting a family. So yeah, that's going to affect my time that I have available, but I'm also extremely flexible on my schedule and when I work and how many hours. And, I'm a complete independent contractor. So my club can let me do whatever I want to do. So you can have a family and you can go that route. It's probably just that you don't see women doing it as much because it's more relating to family, or it might be like, well, I just want to be in an office in a business with a stable job. Like my career has been very like all over the place. At any moment, you're like, I'm moving again. It's 6 months later and I'm going to go to Florida. Then I'm coming back to Nashville. So there's a lot of like down to it also, but I've just seen it become where it's just like booming. And whether you're male or female, if you can teach golf, people are so desperate for teachers, constantly begging for teachers right now who are willing to work and to give lessons. So especially females, it's almost a given if you don't even have to be amazing. Just because like we were talking about with like a Get Golf Ready class, nobody knows how much you know. They don't even care. They show up, they want it to be fun, they want you to laugh with them, they want you to make them feel comfortable. And if you can show them how to grip the club, they're excited and the ball goes in the air, they're amazed.
That's right.
So they don't need you to have credentials behind your name. They don't need you to have worked with the top instructor in the country. They don't care how much you know on the TrackMan. They just want to enjoy the game of golf. And that's a good 90% of our clientele is that person. And that's where the money is. The money's not going to be as easily coming to you if you've got the guy that wants 2 lessons a year and he wants to see his numbers on TrackMan and he wants you to fix them in 2 minutes. There's no money to be made in that for the most part. So it's not like you even have to be an amazing golf coach. Right out of college, you can start teaching like I did with juniors. Mm-hmm. You're not even doing anything with junior golfers. I mean, I hate to say it, but you're babysitting and making it fun for them, right? Mm-hmm. Showing the love of the game for them. And then you start to realize and you start to learn as you go. So, I mean, going back to your question, there's definitely been a huge change, but it's probably just more because of the access again to social media, the Facebook posts that I get constantly or emails I'm constantly getting, that there's just so much opportunity for people now that there's no like there's no women and men. It doesn't really matter. It's just that there tends to be more of a demand for women now because ladies, they're better at talking to people or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of guys that way too, but like, I feel like we're more empathetic when it comes to feelings and this person's really struggling. I mean, most of my lessons I give are usually counseling because the woman's about to start crying, So it just might be easier for women to recognize emotions and things like that. But it's just become like this amazing opportunity now for females to be in this business. And again, we have a female president in the PGA. Like that's huge, right?
Absolutely.
So things changing, like anything right now is changing. It doesn't really matter what business you're in necessarily. It's just, I don't know if there's just not many women think about this career as an option, or maybe they just don't go that route right away. I don't know.
Understood. Yeah, understood. Well, I'll tell you, I am looking forward to when all of this global pandemic stuff calms down, because we certainly got to get you back to campus.
I'd love to come.
It's been a while. We got to get you back here to share, because I think you would have you have a unique perspective, and your passion obviously shows through in what you've done, and we're proud to have you as a graduate of this program, and know that all of our students, have an opportunity to reach out to you, and I will certainly encourage them to do that. But in the meantime, you enjoy moving your folks. I know that's not a small undertaking.
I'm almost done.
And I hope the rest of your year goes well. I know that you're probably ramping up for Naples to get going. Everybody will start moving down there. Late September, early October is when they start to move down, right? So, but definitely appreciate the time, and feel like every time I talk to a graduate, I pick up a bunch of stuff. I took a bunch of notes down here to talk to some of our students about as you were talking.
Awesome.
So I appreciate the time, Sarah, and hopefully we get to meet face to face soon. Crossing my fingers for a PGA show at this point, and a teaching and coaching summit. I'm scared that we're not going to have one, but I hope so.
You never know. Florida is almost going to phase 3.
Yeah,
they're very open down there. So
that's what I've heard.
I can't wait to get back.
Well, all right, Sarah.
All right. Good to see you.
Very much so. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.